minute, stop that music. Take up my what? Now, I am willing to take up a lot of things. You give me a worthy project, especially if it involves music, and I will take it up. A cool hobby? Yes, I'll take it up in a heartbeat, please, and thank you. Teach me a meaningful spiritual practice? I will take that up too, with gratitude. But my cross, you've got to be kidding. I don't want to take up my cross. In fact, I don't even want for there to be a cross with my name on it. Just the words, my cross, I find disturbing. I mean, isn't the whole point of the cross, Jesus' cross to be specific, that Jesus took all the suffering upon himself so that we wouldn't have to? Isn't it? Didn't Jesus bleed so that God would be satisfied and not demand our blood? Didn't Jesus endure torment to give us the possibility of heaven? To be clear, I have thrown this type of atonement theology out long ago like cold, dirty bathwater. I give you permission to do the same. But while we are doing it, let's not throw out the baby, because the cross is still important. We can give up the bad theology, but let's not give up on the essential teaching of Jesus about what it means to be his follower. We'll start by hearing the teaching as recorded in Mark's Gospel, chapter 8, beginning with verse 31. Then Jesus began to teach them that the Son of Man must undergo great suffering and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. He said all this quite openly. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But turning and looking at his disciples, he rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan, for you are setting your mind not on divine things, but on human things." He called the crowd with his disciples and said to them, "If any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake and for the sake of the gospel will save it." Take up their cross, losing their life. Maybe that was only meant for the early followers of Jesus, but they didn't end up on crosses. Should they have? Should I? I kind of like the cross better around my neck than on my back. I surely don't want to give up my life, at least not in such a brutal way. Is that even necessary if Jesus endured the cross for us? What does it mean to take up my cross and follow Jesus and to lose my life for the sake of the gospel? Gospel meaning good news? Doesn't sound like good news to me. Let's consider what taking up the cross meant for Jesus. So at a certain point in his ministry, he started talking about his suffering, death, and resurrection. Clearly, he knew something like a cross was in his future. He predicted it at least 3 times to our knowledge, and this is the first. And it was a total shock to his disciples. Peter even rebuked him, and rebuke means to drive out a demon that is making someone say crazy things. The idea of Jesus suffering and dying sounded like madness to Peter, probably the others too, who were all of them probably too shocked to say much anything at all. But Jesus rebuked Peter. There's that word again. Jesus was driving out the kind of talk that might convince him to choose another path in life, a path that would have actually seemed quite logical, the path of survival. Why would he choose the path of torture and death when he had the capacity to help so many people have a better life? It doesn't make sense in the usual ways, and that's why Peter was so perplexed. And that is the paradox of Jesus, isn't it? You save your life by losing it, you lose your life by saving it, so take up your cross and follow Jesus. But why he took up that cross is still the question at hand, and we haven't answered it yet. It is a big question with more possible answers than we can possibly explore in one sitting, but some of the more well-known answers are the ones you've seen emblazoned on bumper stickers and t-shirts. Jesus died for our sins is an easy answer that rolls off a lot of lips, broadcast from billboards, even proclaimed from pulpits, but for me, I can't get behind that one. For our sins, really? Because why? God is not capable of forgiving human beings for being human beings, which is to say flawed, unless God has given a blood sacrifice? Could that really be the same God who, according to the psalmist, has no delight in sacrifice? The God who has no delight in sacrifice, who longs only for our changed heart, that is the God I worship. As far as I know, that's also the God Jesus worshipped, and I cannot worship any other kind of God, certainly not a God who demands blood sacrifice. Nope, not for me. So, the idea that God required Jesus to die a brutal death as an act of sacrificial atonement, without which none of us could ever be forgiven, I push back on that one. Like the nasty old bathwater, all gray and cloudy, I toss it out, giving it up not only for Lent, but forever. But the baby in the bathwater, the cross, it's still there, isn't it? Why on earth did Jesus die on the cross, if not, as some say, for our sins? Maybe not for our sins, but because of our sins. And even if you and I were not there, we understand that human beings have collectively participated in certain categories of sinful behavior, both in the past and in the present. And I do not mean those Puritan-inspired sins of the flesh, good sex and dark chocolate and red wine in no particular order, because frankly, as long as these things hurt no one, there is nothing in the world that makes them sinful. Cheers to the good life. No, the real sins of humanity, and these are quite serious, are greed, economic exploitation, environmental degradation, disregard for human dignity, violence in any shape or form, unchecked power, and these are the kinds of sin against which Jesus spoke out. And because of it, he was condemned to die the way all enemies of the Roman Empire died, on the cross. In the end, it was human sin that killed him, not because he wanted to die, not because God wanted him to die, but because the powers that be would not tolerate a challenge to their power. Jesus could have stopped it from happening, but only if he had been willing to give up on his teaching, abandoning his mission of changing hearts and minds. And that was his life's work, the purpose for which he had been born, the challenge he accepted when he stepped out of those baptismal waters, heard God calling him beloved, and set forth to become the new leader of the movement. To give up on his life's work would have been its own kind of death, and a slower, more painful death in its own right. Jesus didn't take up a cross so much as he took up a cause. It just happened to come with a cost, as many causes do. They might not always cost us our actual life, but they will cost us hours, weeks, months, maybe even years of our lives, whatever we are willing to dedicate to our cause. There's a story of a concert violinist who was greeted backstage by an adoring fan who said, "I would give my life to play as you do." To which the violinist replied, "I have." What is the cause to which we would give our life, any part of it? Because Jesus' invitation to take up our cross is in essence an invitation to take up the cause that feels the most urgent to you, whatever it might cost you. It might mean sacrificing certain priorities, re-evaluating how we utilize our various resources of time, talent, even treasure. It will mean letting go of, losing some aspect of our life in order that we gain the kind of life for which we were meant. It might sound like a very tall order, but it can be done on whatever scale we are able. I am reminded of the words of Mother Teresa, who said of her world-renowned ministry to the poor, "I don't do great things, only small things with great love." I feel like we can work with that. Let's start with the part about great love. Where is your great love? That thing you cannot stop thinking about, the thing that keeps tugging at your heart, that is the place to start. From there, we begin to wonder, what small thing might I do to show that love? And it's okay to start with a small thing, because that's how all things start. From the tallest trees to the hugest whales, all of them started with just a small thing that was allowed to grow. And so it is with our work in the world. It doesn't matter how small we start, as long as we start. As followers of Jesus, we take up whatever it is that we feel called to take up, aware that there will be a cost, but accepting of the terms. Being a disciple of Jesus isn't without risk. You might try and fail. You might find yourself up against a challenge that fights back. Your heart might even break a little bit for the broken things you allow yourself to love. But isn't that what the cross is about, after all? God's own heart, broken for the world, but out of the brokenness, new life, resurrection, and hope for all. Taking up a cross, taking up a cause is not easy work, but I promise you this, when we do, we'll be in good company, because Jesus will already be there where he has always been, just waiting for us to join him. So I think I can finally finish that song. Where he leads me, I will follow. Where he leads me, I will follow. Where he leads me, I will follow. I'll go with him all the way. Thanks be to God, and bless you on your journey of following Jesus.